Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV mobile studio. That's AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by Legal Shield, providing legal protection and peace of mind. Legal Shield can help with traffic tickets, texting and driving, DUIs, court appearances, estate planning, even contracts given to people they don't understand, plus a whole lot more. For more information, contact Legal Shield at 213-245-1305. That's 213-245-1305. Again, 213-245-1305. Or check them out online for more information at nocourt.us. That's www.nocourt.us. An astounding round of applause. And welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Magic 97.9 FM right here in Las Vegas. And, of course, our NBC News and CNBC financial affiliate over in Los Angeles. Thanks for joining us. KCAA and everywhere else. Comcast, Cox, Spectrum, Frontier, WOW Cable, as well as hotel television in every metered market in America by Nielsen. We're here with a very special guest right from the very top. We're going to let him introduce himself.
Hey, everybody. My name's Rob Mount. Played drums with Lou Gramm, the legendary singer of Foreigner, for a few years. I've been a camp counselor at the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and also played drums with the all-star band Scrap Metal from time to time. So,
all right, that's good stuff. All right, so the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. We could get to that one for sure, because look, those are kind of cool. There's a lot of people, I can tell you as a former athlete, there's a lot of people that want to play sports, and there's a lot of people that want to play music. This is great stuff, and we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to drum, but you're one of those self-taught guys, aren't you?
Well, on the drum set, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I started when I was I'm schooled in percussion and reading music for snare drum, orchestra stuff. I went to college for music education. I went to the Eastman School of Music when I was in my teens to study, percussion, marimba, and percussion ensembles and all that stuff. But as far as rock and roll and drums and all that, basically I taught myself listening to all those Led Zeppelin and Kiss and Rush records and all that good stuff. Right.
Yeah, but did you, when you were listening to the Kiss, were you putting your tongue out in the air and doing the, whatever?
I did dress up as Ace Frehley once for Halloween, so I did that. I remember I always wanted to be Peter Criss, though, so why I did Ace for Halloween, I don't know, but I remember getting a letter that my dad wrote telling me about, he signed it as Peter Criss, and it was some sort of birthday present I got or Christmas present, and he signed it from Peter Criss from Kiss as far as some equipment I wanted or whatever. So I don't know. It's just a big thing for many years. Big Kiss freak.
Yeah. I like that. That's good stuff. You can give him a round of applause, right?
Oh.
I mean, look, usually it's Santa Claus, but no, this time Peter happened to join the party. Okay, so look, there's the usual conversation, the usual timeline. Take us through this. We're not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I see a bunch of CDs above, right behind you. Tell me about the CDs. I want to know what's up there.
Well, this particular wall happens to be my my music collection for DVDs. So I don't know if you can.
Oh, wow.
Kind of get a little glance there. My CD collection's probably about 4 or 5 times bigger than that. And those are in storage bins right now. So, I always been a big collector of music. I got a minimal vinyl collection that I started when I got my first Kiss records and hopped on CDs when they started coming out. And I probably got a few thousand of those. And then concert videos, big time into concert videos and music documentaries and stuff. So
those are great. I like that stuff. Because look, hey, when all else fails, you have an entire library behind you, but the stuff that you like. So we think of, yes, the influences, etc. I mean, of course, and I noticed, of course, Neil Peart was one of those,
right.
Rest his soul. I mean, look, in my opinion, probably the best drummer I've ever seen, ever.
Oh, phenomenal.
The kit is like, did it ever stop? I mean, how many pieces was that, for Christ's sakes?
I know, right? I mean, the good news about, not in his case because he was so precise, but having a nice big kit with all those cymbals and drums is no matter where you swing, you're going to hit something. So you're never going to miss.
Okay, so what about those guys that only have maybe 4 or 5 pieces? I mean, how often do they actually miss?
Well, the first thing about, and you'll appreciate this because you're into, you played baseball, so you'll know. I mean, with drumming, it's a lot about muscle memory, right? So no matter how many pieces you got, whether it's a small kit, let's say like a Charlie Watts or a John Bonham, a pretty minimal set, or a big set like Neil Peart's or whatever, or Simon Phillips, your muscles get used to going, where they got to go. And so you should be able to play with your eyes closed, really, and hit things pretty consistently, because it's all about muscle memory. So
I love that. You hit things pretty consistently, right? That's one of those things. Well, you're hoping you're going to hit something, right? It's kind of like this ridiculous light show. So we're in the glass bubble here for AMP TV. So for everybody that's watching on television, you can see we're down at the Fremont Street Experience in Las Vegas, in downtown Las Vegas, right? And that's a round of applause for the Fremont Street Experience. Thank God it's a soundproof booth. But nonetheless, sometimes somebody will walk by with a dog or something, and the dog will start scratching, and all kinds of mayhem breaks out. And you never know. If enough people go into the side of it, they would knock us over. And yes, they would be hitting things from muscle memory too, if you know what I mean.
There you go.
Right. So, but I like the idea that you're going to hit something. And then I think about, as a professional, because you practice like you play, right? It doesn't matter whether it's sports, whether it's music, whatever it is, even public speaking. It's the idea you practice like you play. That's how you're supposed to play. So when it comes to a tour, right, and you know what your lineup is, how many times, just for the audience out there, how many times do you actually practice one particular song before you are on stage for the very first time with that, for example, with Lou Gramm?
Well, joining Lou Gramm's band, of course, I had to learn the set, which most of it I knew. I had played with him before as a sub years before, so I knew the set. And I was in a Foreigner tribute band with his nephew even before that. So I knew Lou Gramm's music well in advance. There was a couple of songs I actually had to learn that I never played. But then once you're on stage and you're going out every weekend and every other weekend, you don't really have to practice as much once you get in that, you get in that flow. Now, when there'd be an off time for a couple months during the winter, then it's your duty to practice and keep up. And you know what I mean? You don't want to go to heck by the time you get back going in a couple months. You know what I mean? So it's your duty to practice and keep up at that point. So that's when I would sit down and really practice in the off season, so to speak.
So it's your duty to practice, but let's go with the songs that you didn't know. How many times and how frequently before you went on the first time, what was it like? Because let's face it, there's prep time. You got to learn the playbook, right?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, for me, first what I do when I'm learning music, I'll listen to it over and over and over and over and over again. Like I'll put it on repeat a million times. I'll go to sleep with it and just ingrain it in my brain so it's in my subconscious, And again, with Foreigner, most of the time you've heard these songs for 45 years anyways, so it's not like something new I never heard. And then after I ingrain it, then of course you're going to sit down and you're going to play it, and I don't know, I couldn't say exactly how many times, but maybe 10 times, 15 times, whatever, enough to get it down. I mean, the good news about Lou and doing Foreigner, it's not technical music. What you're doing is you're playing for the song. So your job is just to keep it simple, play it faithful to the original. So, if you've played enough times, you kind of know how to get it down without having to, it's not like learning a Rush song, for instance, as Neil Peart would be, you know what I mean? So.
Right. Well, what about the idea, so let's go to the Ramrod stuff, right? And it's a very different sound. It's speed, it's good, it's fun, it's energy, it's right? In your face kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. And so if you're not around for the writing and you're not around for the original,
right,
how do you go about practicing that? Because there's a lot going on there.
Well, that I was part of the writing, because that was me and the other two guys in the band, and we came up with a lot of that stuff in the jam room. Or one of the guys would have a cool riff, and then we design a drum beat around the riff. So the good news with that stuff, and I bet you nobody really probably knows that band because it never really made it. We got a record deal in Europe, and it's a long story there where the guys ended up joining a real popular metal band called Overkill. And then kind of that was the end of Ramrod, even though we had a deal. But it's really physical, speed metal, kind of industrial kind of stuff. So it's a lot more intense. And you really do have to ramp yourself up to be able to play that stuff and then keep it consistent. Because that's not just playing 2 and 4 regular Foreigner-ish rock stuff. That's like, you're talking a physical workout there. So, some guy would bring in an idea and then, be like, a good rhythm, if there's a good rhythm, then I would copy that on the drums, and then we would take it from there. So that's a completely different philosophy than just learning a standard rock song, because there's a lot more freedom in that type of music. You're playing for the song, but you have a lot more freedom to do what you want, versus in Lou Gramm, I'm not going to go do a drum solo in the middle of a song. It's uncalled for, So
right. Well, the reason I'm talking about this here in the last 30 seconds of the segment is because, look, when people go to games, right, TV timeout, whatever, and the music breaks out, and they want to keep the energy up for the crowd. So there's going to be certain types of music they play. Sometimes they're going to play metal, sometimes they're going to play some rap, hip hop, whatever it is. It just depends on the venue. But also, it's to keep the energy level up. So when we come back, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Back here with Rob Mount, superstar drummer. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
My favorite one had to do with the Green Bay Packers. And I love the fact that they dealt off Ty Montgomery because of a blown assignment. Green Bay isn't Green Bay unless they have a good running game. Then they can win 10 Super Bowls. The fact is, you don't have a running game. You've got 70% passing, and that's not where Aaron Rodgers needs to be. He needs to be in a position where he's got a running game to offset the passing game and so forth. I like the move. Green Bay didn't have a running game anyway, so all they're doing is saying, we're going to get rid of you because you don't follow instructions.
Well, he made one of the most boneheaded plays I've ever seen. There's 2 minutes and 5 seconds on the clock. They traded him on Tuesday.
They should have cut him on Sunday night.
He shouldn't have been on the plane back to Green Bay.
Right, they should have made him walk back to Green Bay.
No, it was a terrible play. Now, he's not a stupid guy. He went to Stanford. He's not a dumb guy.
He's not a dumb guy, but he doesn't follow instructions.
He made a terrible play.
The fact is he didn't follow instructions. And you say he's not a dumb guy. His own agenda he put ahead of his team.
I agree.
Thus, he is a dumb guy. Right or wrong?
Wrong. He just got selfish. You're not going to convince me that a guy from Stanford's a dum-dum.
No!
This is Sidney Justin from The Miracles.
So you heard yesterday's show at Roy Firestone. Did you hear a little clip about him going into the office where Smokey was at? And that was really good material, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really funny, man.
Yeah, and then you heard him.
I thought it was hilarious. It was cool, though. It was cool. Really cool story, man. I enjoyed listening to that.
Right, and then he gave a couple of bars. Can you give us a couple of more from Ooh Baby Baby? And let's see if you could do it better than Roy Firestone. Come on, man!
All right, you know what? Why not? I did you wrong. My heart went out to play. But in the game, I lost you. What a price to pay. Hey, I'm crying. Ooh, baby, baby. How's that, man?
That's
Is that okay? Is that good enough?
That's incredible.
That's fantastic.
You know why? Because that's what you do. You're in the incredible business, Sid. That's awesome. Yes! Only on the Sports Circus. You're going to get sports. You get music.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
You're watching the Sports Circus, and I am Brian Erlacher.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas, downtown Las Vegas, in front of the Fremont Street Experience in the AMP TV mobile studio. That's AAMP.TV. Make sure you check it out, follow, and subscribe to AMP TV. This segment brought to you in part by Cali Vegas, helping people create and host their very own radio, TV, or multimedia talk shows. Cali Vegas get out with everything they need to get out of sitting in hours of traffic, commuting back and forth to the same old boring job, and host their very own talk show in their very own home studio. For more information, contact Cali Vegas at 949-445-1119. That's 949-445-1119. Again, 949-445-1119. Or visit online for more information at calivegas.com. That's www.calivegas.com. All right, a big welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, including our friends over in Honolulu on the New York Yankees radio network, also the 49ers radio network. That's KHKA, CBS Sports 1500 over in sunny Southern California, NBC News, CNBC Financial. That'd be KCAA 106.5, 102.3 FM and 1050 AM right here in Las Vegas. In fact, right around the corner is our studio at 97.9 FM, Magic 97.9 FM right here in Las Vegas. Of course, our friends down in South Texas, thanks for joining us on CBS Sports KSIX, home of the Astros, Rockets, and Texans, 95.1, 96.1, and 12:30 a.m. up in Fairday, Louisiana, Natchez, Mississippi, Mid-South Broadcasting, that's 107.1 The River. Thanks for joining us also in Auburn, Alabama, on the Atlanta Braves Radio Network, WAUD, and WDJY in Atlanta. The list can go on and on, Rob. We're all over the place. We're also in hotels, Comcast, Cox, Spectrum, Frontier, Wild Cable. You know, somebody should pay me to actually recite these things. What do you think? I don't know. Anyway, we're here with rock star Rob Mount, drummer, superstar drummer, fantasy camp drummer. Oh, by the way, drum for Lou Gramm as well. You may know him from Foreigner, the legendary voice of Foreigner. Rob, thanks for coming back with us here on the circus.
Thanks for having me on. Having a great time.
Yes, sir. Okay, so stadium music. I left off there about TV timeouts and maybe there's a timeout on the field or something like that, and the energy needs to stay up. How many times have you gone to an event and you've heard this happen? Probably many, right or wrong?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a big thing to keep the crowd going. You know, when the players aren't doing anything, you want to keep that energy up. Yeah, because then obviously, just like at a rock concert, the athletes feed off the crowd, you know, like we do as musicians. So, you know, it's a big loop. You know what I mean? Keep everybody going. Yep.
Right. And a lot of times what it will do is it'll get people so fired up to go out and go back up to concession and go buy some more food, some more drink, whatever, go get their drink out, start throwing them back even faster, right? Because it helps the revenue stream for everybody. But think about your experience at games. Let's just say whether it's football or baseball or basketball, what's your choice of game to go to if you went to a particular game? Maybe hockey.
Well, I went to a lot of hockey games as a kid, but lately I've been a lifelong Red Sox fan, so going to Boston pretty frequently and going to Fenway Park is a big deal for me. So love going to see the Red Sox play. So
right. So it's between innings. Are you getting up and dancing to the music? Are you running to go get yourself a drink or some food or the restroom? Are you staying in your seat and getting wild? Or are you going up out of the seating area, out of the bowl?
Well, I am not a big dancer, so getting up and shaking my rear end to dance probably wouldn't be anything anybody'd want to see. But, you know, who doesn't get into the tunes, you know, whether you got to get up and go to the bathroom or get a beer or whatever it is, you know, you're still, you know, rooting for the team. Hopefully they're winning. And, you know, it's a great time. You know, it's an experience, right? And the whole thing is providing an experience that you want to remember. And so there you go. You got to keep the high going, right?
So, Rob, talking about those venues, think about the venues that you've played in, right, in front of thousands of people, whether it was over in Germany, right, at a Metals Fest, right, or whether it's out touring, maybe doing something a little more subdued. What was the most energetic event that you've ever performed in? Was it that festival in Germany?
Well, that was one of them. Yeah, that's still an ongoing festival called the Wacken Open Air Festival. They do it the first weekend of every year in August, and it's the biggest hard rock heavy metal festival in the world. And I mean, hundreds of thousands of people go to this thing. And everybody's played it. They've got 4 stages going, and yeah, I mean that was phenomenal. That was probably, well, I can't say it's the biggest as far as crowd goes I've ever played to, but it definitely was probably the biggest experience. I mean, just to be there for a weekend, not only play it, but to be there is unbelievable. And they've actually made movies about that festival that you can check out, and people camp for the weekend and come from all over the world. And it was just a phenomenal experience. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, playing in those kind of venues. Look, I've never been on stage playing in a band. But I've been in front of a big crowd playing sports, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me personally, I mean, I fed off the opposing crowd. I loved being in the opposing park. Mm-hmm. So think about this. All right. Now, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I remember going to a concert one time, and this was at the Hollywood Bowl, and I went to go see Morrissey back in 1992. And Morrissey was kind of doing his own gig at that time, right? Broke away from the Smiths. And there was an opening band, which I loosely say band. These guys, their name was Gallon Drunk. Gallon Drunk. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because never in my life have I ever seen a band literally booed off a stage. As a matter of fact, it got so bad, everybody was throwing their food and their beer and everything. Yeah, there's a lot of money wasted, right? But they were throwing everything at the band. And I'm like, wow, I've never seen this. I've seen food fights. In 1988, I went to a ridiculous concert at the Rose Bowl. That was Depeche Mode and OMD and Thomas Dolby, whatever. And I saw the largest food fight in the world, 111,000 people on the field and in the seats, throwing food everywhere. It's crazy. But never have I seen a band get food and stuff thrown at them and then have the guy come out. I don't even know what his name was. He was allegedly doing vocals. I don't really know what he was trying to do. But he picked the mic and goes, "What the beep do you know about performing in front of a crowd?" And this guy went off for about 3 minutes. And, of course, in the middle of kind of like a scene from the Blues Brothers when they were behind the chicken wire with all the bottles being thrown at him. But so this guy was standing up there and literally getting barraged with nachos and hot dogs and you name it. And it was to the point where I've never seen such a debacle carry on for so long. So the entertainment value of the debacle was really it. It wasn't the music that they attempted to play. Have you ever seen anything so bad where you're like, wow, this is a terrible movie, but I have to watch?
You mean have I ever seen a concert like that? Or
yeah.
I can't think of anything. I don't think I've ever been to one where it was that bad. I mean, I know in over in England they have a festival that used to be called the Donington Festival, now called the Download Festival, and it's customary for them to throw bottles of piss at artists and stuff on stage and all sorts of clumps of sod. But I think, that's like a custom there. But I've never been to a concert where it was that bad. No, no.
It was phenomenal. I mean, it was the perfect train wreck. If you can imagine this. I have to say that it was the most unusual thing that I've ever seen, but it was remarkably entertaining. Certainly something I will never forget. And
I'll try to go to one of those.
Yeah, right. I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, I wanted to go see Morrissey, but I'm like, well, geez, does this stuff really happen? And am I watching a movie? It was in Hollywood, too. So was it scripted? I don't know. But, sometimes we go to these concerts, our expectations are really high. And then sometimes we get let down. But what was an event that you played in that maybe you didn't have the highest expectations, but it blew you away afterwards? Did you have one of those?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's been a few. Like when I was with Lou, we would play regular concerts, of course, but then we would play corporate events, which a lot of artists do these days. They get hired to do corporate events. And sometimes those can be hit or miss because sometimes it's just for a bunch of bankers or whatever. And a lot of times you can tell you're just there for almost background music sometimes. It's not like these are even a crowd that would normally come see Lou Gramm or whatnot. But there's been a few. We did one in Georgia a few years ago that was for a lawyers convention just north of Atlanta. I think it's called Brazelton, Georgia, or something like that. And they were nuts. I mean, those people were drinking. They were going crazy. It was like their weekend to get loose. And after the show, they came up to us and invited us to, the bar and on this big complex the whole thing was done at, and they were just feeding us drinks all night long. And it was like, wow, you would think it'd be a bunch of stiff lawyers, just standing there, hody-dody-do, but it was like, wow, they were having more fun than a lot of people. So
I guess the big question is, how many of them actually tried to hand you their business card? Hey, make sure you call me if you ever get into a personal accident or something crazy like that, right? You have to ask yourself those questions. I don't know. We have 1 minute left in the segment. All right. What was the weirdest thing that came out of that lawyers convention?
The weirdest thing? I can't think of anything weird. I just remember being shoved beers in every hand every 3 seconds. It's like, have a beer. Here's a beer. They kept. It's like, how many beers can you hold on to at the same time? That was interesting. They felt the need. They wanted to hang with us. And it was their way of showing their appreciation. So. That was just like being at a college party or something where people were just handing you drinks. So that's a
great experience, though. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're going to be back with Rob Mount, rock star, in just a few minutes here on the Sports Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
Really? Where's the punch sound? 400 punches.
Here's the punch sound.
Right, exactly. Look, he almost knocked out the microphone.
Alicia, that's why they have cue cards, babe. So don't let the name bother you. Just bring a cue card with you next time.
People can't read my name off a cue card.
Well, change your name to Joe Smith or something. Jeez, make it easy.
Yeah.
Because the concept on that was that during I throw a flag downfield for DPI, so to speak.
How far could you throw a flag? What's your record for throwing a flag?
Well, you know what people don't realize.
I know there's beanbags or something.
There's beanbags marks the spots. It flags you've got a little sand in it and you roll it up to a little ball to try to get to the
record?
spot. You don't. People think that you're throwing it a huge distance. You don't have to throw it a huge. You just got to get it on the right line.
But do they have like a punt, pass, and kick for flags?
No, but you can throw it 15, 20, 22 yards pretty easy. You can throw it pretty good to get it to the spot.
Have you ever thrown a flag at a player out of frustration?
No. I'll tell you what I did do. Years ago, when I was in high school ball, we used to wear the flag in our back pocket. Most officials wear it down in the front. Yeah, and I went to throw the flag, and at that time, we didn't have all the official supplies like you have now. I used to go to the hardware store and get a fishing weight to put in the yellow flag.
He went to the hardware store.
Yeah.
Fishing weight.
Imagine how old I am.
You can
now.
see how well the NFL really pays well, don't they?
So I had this weight in my flag, and it was in the back, and I was on the wing.
But the goofiest thing that we ever did was they filled a swimming pool full of Jell-O, and people could pay to watch Gary and I dive into this pool of Jell-O, and he and I raised $100,000 doing that.
Okay. That's hilarious.
That was the goofiest thing I've ever done.
I love that. And, at least when you go underwater, you can actually eat Jell-O.
That's right. That's right.
Can you actually swim in Jell-O?
You actually could, because it's so soft in texture that you actually could.
That's ridiculous.
That's funny.
Jesus.
Probably the craziest Bill Parcells moment was one day we were getting our butts kicked. We were playing, I forget who we were playing. I forget. I think might have been Philadelphia. We came in at halftime, and the room was quiet. The room was stoked quiet. Guys were mad. What's going on? And Parcells comes in the locker room, and he has a garbage can full of garbage. And he takes the garbage can and he dumps it in the middle of the meeting at halftime. And the guys look at each other, and we go, what the hell was that about? The next thing you know, because that's what you guys are playing like. And I might as well leave you right there with it. But that was a quietly kept Parcellsism.
Please visit www.thesportscircus.com for a complete list of featured guests and previous episodes.
Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas, the downtown experience for Fremont Street, folks. Everybody watching on television, you can see this. If you're streaming on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, whatnot, you can see this crazy light show behind me. But guess what? Everybody on the radio, we're just telling you where we're at. Welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Of course, also Comcast, Cox Spectrum, Frontier, WOW Cable, right around the corner from our Las Vegas affiliate. That's Magic 97.9 FM. We're about 2 blocks away from there. All right, and we are here. Never mind the sponsor for this segment. No, it's actually brought to you by Rob Mount today. Rob's going to tell everybody about him in case you're just tuning in. Real quick, take 30 seconds and refresh everybody.
Okay, well, my name's Rob Mount, and played drums for many years with Lou Gramm, the singer of Foreigner. Done the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp as a counselor, played with the all-star band Scrap Metal, and also played for a little while with Metal Blade artist Liege Lord way back many years ago. So it's the short version.
The short version. You know what? There's some good music on your website, too. That's robmount.com. Listening to it just yesterday, and there's a nice variety over there. And so in case you don't know some of the music that Rob's played on, guess what? Go familiarize yourself. This guy's a super talent. He's just somehow he's hiding out over where he's at, I think in New York right now, saying, who's going to find me? Oh, that's right. My next big gig is going to be here. Well, guess what? We're actually putting something together, Rob, that we're going to try to include you in on. It's going to be in March. So it's coming up without timestamping the show. We want to be able to play this over and over, right? So people are blue in the face with it. But we've got something coming up we're going to try to include you in on it. And I think you're going to be pleased with what's coming up. A nice little round of applause there for the Sports Circus and its event from AMP TV. All right, so you also play guitar. A lot of people don't know that about you.
Yeah, I picked that up when I was in my early teens, and I had a friend who had a guitar, and I used to borrow his for a while, and then eventually I got my own when I was probably 13 or so, and I started playing guitar for a little while, probably a little more, and I played drums. I really sat down in the basement with my Randy Rhoads, Ozzy music, and I loved playing Triumph and Journey and all the stuff at the back then, it was popular at that time. And so I would just sit down and learn all those songs by ear, and then I'd also get, my guitar teacher. I actually took lessons from a couple different teachers, and either learning theory or learning songs through them as well. And did that for many, many years. And actually, speaking of the Ramrod music that you mentioned earlier, the real heavy stuff that you can hear on my website, I wrote some of the songs on with the other guys on that too. So, not a great guitar player by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't play as much as I used to. But yeah, I love playing guitar. Fun
That's
stuff.
Good stuff. I mean, look, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of top-level musicians can play multiple instruments. I mean, whether it's drums, whether it's guitar, a lot of guys will play bass and they'll pick up a list. Hey, it only has 4 strings versus, 6 or 12. So it's got to be a little bit easier, right? But we go back to the beginning. Somebody once asked me, one of my friends was a former bass player for Crosby, Stills and Nash way back in the day. In fact, he was on the stage at Woodstock. Right, and he was, I think he was about 13 years old. In fact, on the old Deja Vu album, they painted a mustache. They drew in a mustache on him on that particular album. And there, everybody's wearing cowboy outfits. I remember he took me to the radio or to the record store one time. He's like, "You don't know who I am." I'm like, I don't care who you are, if you know what I mean, right? So I gave him one of those. But I got to tell you, I met him. It was a chance meeting, whatever. And then somehow I remember we ended up at like one of those big stores like Costco or something, right? And so there was a guitar, like the entry-level guitars, right? You think about when we were kids, the kind of stuff we would go out and buy because that's really kind of what we could afford, right? And he picked it up and started playing. He goes, "Watch this." He walked over, picked up, and there was like 50 people around him. He's playing an entry-level guitar, and it was like a mini concert. But sometimes you don't know. I mean, I knew who he was and I knew what he could do. But when you see it in person, you're like, wow, that dude could play this too? And he had contacted me about putting some new music out. And I said, I'll tell you what, I want to hear the drums and bass. Tell everybody why the drums and bass are so important when it comes to putting new music out.
Well, that's the foundation of any music. well, at least rock, and almost every type of music. If you don't have a good rhythm section, it doesn't matter how good the singer is or anybody else. If that rhythm's not there, the time isn't there, that bass isn't locking in with the kick drum of the drummer, and that foundation's not there, then it's a mess. So and everybody kind of listens to us as the rhythm section. So the guitar player, Eddie Van Halen, he listened to his brother playing drums. That's who he listened to. If the drummer wasn't there, Eddie wouldn't have been the same rhythmic guitar player that he ended up being. So you really have to have that rock back there, the drummer, the bass player locked in, and then everybody else can ride off of that.
So did you ever pick a bass up and try to do the other side of it?
No, I never tried to play bass. Not that I've never picked up a bass, but I've never pursued or really tried to play it. But I respect guys that could do that because the strings are so big and everything's a lot bigger, even though there's less of them. The strings are heavier, so it's I admire guys that can.
Supersized guitar,
yeah.
Right? And the largest one I've ever seen was I went to go see Michael Schenker locally here. And his bass player, he had this bass that was like the size of 2 guitars. It was unbelievably large. It's like, do you really need that? He was kind of a small guy. Maybe it was like, the little people driving big trucks. I'm not really sure what that means, but yeah, it could have been something like that. The small person complex. But boy, the sound it came out was incredible.
Sure. Well, you got guys like Billy Sheehan, who's from my area here in upstate New York, who can really play and make it sound like a guitar. And, it all started with guys like Paul McCartney, who really, played melodic lines and didn't just sit back there and thump on the root note. They actually made it part of the melody, and so bass playing is very important. A lot of those guys don't get their due. So,
well, I think we saw that with Geddy Lee a little bit too, didn't we?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Talk about a guy who could sing and play bass and keyboards and all that stuff. He's in another world. He could multitask like crazy, Very awesome.
All right. So tell me a little bit more about robmount.com. What can people expect to see there? What is coming in the future at robmount.com?
Well, I got the music that I've done, the last 30 plus years of recordings are on there, from kind of like a Bon Jovi-ish type of commercial hair metal rock stuff to the Ramrod really heavy metal stuff that we were talking about earlier. And then there's 2 times that I actually recorded for Lou. Twice we recorded the Foreigner, like the best of Foreigner stuff, and made these compilations for promotional purposes to be played, on the radio stations announcing concerts, because Lou couldn't use the original licensing for the original music. So back in like 2004, before I was in the band, I was doing things like that for Lou. We did like the first group of that. And then back in 2016, when I joined for real, we re-recorded more as well. So all that kind of music's on there, a bunch of photos, from way back that, you would look through prior to our coming on air here. A lot of good photos that a bunch of professional guys took of me. There's links to my social media. So my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube stuff is on there as well. So, and I try to keep people up to date when I got a gig or some sort of event. I always put it up on there as well. So, try to keep it current.
I have a question real quick. Now we've got a couple minutes left in the segment, and I have to ask this. So back in the early days when we'd watch the old, whether it was on American Bandstand or whatever, or Johnny Carson or Ed Sullivan, whatever, you'd see guys holding their drumsticks, one like this here, and then the other one down. But now we see guys holding them like this here. As I recall, people were taught to do it this here way. Everybody on TV could see this. Right? What is the difference between the way they're holding their drumsticks? Why is it that one is holding it almost like upright, not upright, but to the side, so to say, one's not? What's that all about?
Well, you're referring to what's called traditional grip, which is when you would hold the stick, kind of like I'm holding this pen here. And a lot of your jazz guys would play that way. Charlie Watts, God rest his soul, would play that way. A lot of people, especially in the older days, were taught that way. And I started out that way as well. You get a lot more, at least speaking for myself, I get a lot more finesse playing traditional grip. So if I'm playing like a shuffle, let's say like Rosanna by Toto, I can, or 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by, Steve Gadd, drummer from Rochester, New York, my hometown here. You get a lot more finesse by playing the stick or holding the stick that way. Match grip was when you're holding both sticks like this. I tend to play most of the time because it's a different attack on the drum. You can get more whack out of the drum, especially if you're hitting what's called a rim shot, where the middle of the stick's kind of hitting the rim and the tip is hitting the head. So it's a lot more powerful. You get a bigger, fatter sound doing it that way. So depends on what you're after. Some guys never learn the traditional grip, which is why you don't see most guys doing it. I don't think today it's really taught that much, but that's how I started.
That's interesting stuff. All right, so Rob, we're coming up on the end of the segment. I want you to stick around for just a couple more minutes on the other side of the break so we could wrap it up, put a nice pretty bow on it, tell everybody how to follow you, et cetera, et cetera. Really good stuff. I've always wanted to know that about the grips on the sticks because I've seen it. I'm like, wait a minute. It was taught this way, but now everyone's doing it this way. All right, folks, we're going to be back here with rock star Rob Mount in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Last more to come here on The Circus.
You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live in Las Vegas at the AMP-TV mobile studio. Actually, we're sitting right out in front of the Fremont Street Experience. Everybody watching on television can see this crazy light show behind me. It just seems to never end. Great stuff here in fabulous Las Vegas, right around the corner from one of our stations, 97.9 FM. Make sure when you're in Las Vegas, you tune in there. Otherwise, on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, whether it's Los Angeles, KCAA, or WDJY in Atlanta, or KSIX out of Texas, whatever. Guess what? We're everywhere. You can't get away from us, even everybody on social media. Thanks for joining us, and in hotels, too, from coast to coast. We are back here with Rob Mount, rock star, drummer for everybody. Now, we're going to say everybody, but Lou Gramm, this guy has done it. Look at all the CDs. Those are his CDs. No, I'm playing. All those CDs, those are the ones you made, right? Or behind you? No. But nonetheless, this guy's a very, very smart guy. He's an educated guy, and I love that. So he speaks at a level above, well, I don't know, man. I'm not really sure what this is about. No, this is the guy that actually knows music. He reads music, plays multiple instruments. And Rob, when you were younger and you learned how to play, because you went to music school, right? So you're learning how to read music for real. There's a lot of people that don't know how to read music. It's kind of like people that could speak English, but they can't read it, so they're technically illiterate. But you are music literate, and a nice little round of applause for that, because there are very few people that can read music. Tell me the difference between reading the music and playing it versus just hearing it and playing it. What does that look like? What does it sound like?
Well, both are equally important. To be able to read music means anybody can, you could do a session, you could do a gig, somebody could put a chart in front of you, and to some various degree, a person could, you don't have to memorize anything, so you could just sit down and look at it and play it. And that's how you get a lot of work, let's say studio work. And a guy like Kenny Aronoff, for instance, who does everybody's records, even says that. He goes, I have to chart it all out. Because no way I'd memorize everybody's stuff that I hired to do, but I could sure chart it out and read it. So that's a great skill to have, because it makes you more marketable and it just broadens your horizons, right? But it's equally as important to be able to ear train yourself and learn it by ear as well, because that's a different skill. So when you're jamming with other musicians and things, you need to be able to use that skill, when you're coming up with things or feeding off somebody, or, like learning a Foreigner song. I mean, Dennis Elliott didn't write out the sheet music to play Foreigner. That's something he made up, and then the rest of us who've been in with Lou or Foreigner would learn by ear. So two really equally good skills to have.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to read music, because now you could step into any setting just about, as long as you could read it, what it is. Yes, you've got to hear it too, but the fact is you could read it and you know what that's supposed to sound like in your head, right? Yeah. So if you're playing a guitar, for example, you're reading whole notes, half notes, quarters, eighths, sixteenths. You know the length of each note, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of know what to expect. And then it makes a little bit more sense if you also have heard it. So now you can actually visualize it. But the fact is, if you haven't the ability to read it and you're playing it for the first time, there's a big difference on the learning curve. Is there or is there not?
Well, yeah, you have an advantage if you can read it and if you've never heard it. So you can sit there, like you said, and go, okay, this is where this is going. This is what it's supposed to be. And at least you get a good general idea of where you're going with it. So you're in an advantage. Whereas if you had to sit there and learn it by ear, I mean, you're taking up valuable time that a lot of times you don't have, so you're just in an advantage. The more skills you have in anything, business, sports, music, whatever it is, the more broadened your palette is, the more employable you are, so, and the more adaptable you are.
Well, so let's take this back to sports. It's a sports show. It is the Sports Circus. It's a circus, and we prove it every day. We don't really know where we're going with it. That's the cool part about it. So going back to playing in certain venues, whether it's maybe even before a sporting event, right? Or even playing the national anthem, and you've got the crowd around you. Have you been in that setting where you played either a halftime or before a game or after a game or something? And if so, what was that experience? If not, what do you think it would be like?
Well, I did that many years ago. Before I was in Lou's band with a regional band I happened to be in, and here in Rochester we have lacrosse is pretty big in this area, and so the band I was in at the time did the pre-show for the Rochester Rattlers lacrosse team. And it was our job, to get the crowd riled up, do what you're talking about. It was pretty cool. You're standing, you're on stage at the end of a stadium, and people are getting into it and getting excited, and that in turn gets them excited for the event, of course. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It was a long time ago, but it's cool.
It doesn't, whether it was yesterday, tomorrow, the fact is that you've been in that rodeo, and I can tell you from on the field, it's exciting for the players on the field, just in my own experience, having music pre-game, because it gets everybody pumped up. And whether it's a baseball game or football, it doesn't matter. The fact is the crowd is into it, but the players are into it. So you're driving the energy for the players too. And that's the cool thing about it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's like I said earlier, it's a big giant loop. Somebody creates the energy, whether it's the musicians like us or the athletes, and the crowd gets into it and everybody feeds off each other. And the next thing you know, you just got this cool vibe going. And that's why live events are so important. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing nearly as, watching a game on TV or a concert on TV versus being there. You don't get the energy. And, and it's like you kind of said earlier, you practice as you play live, which is true to an extent, but you're never really there until you're in front of 20,000 people that are giving that energy back to you, because that takes it to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? All of a sudden I'm hitting 10 times harder when I'm in front of a crowd than what I'm thinking I'm practicing at home. Next thing I got blisters when I didn't think I would have them, because it's like, holy crap, I'm really killing myself, but it's cool because you got 20,000 people looking at you. So it's pretty well.
So think about this. When you're playing, let's go to the first time that you played in front of a big crowd. Like you just said, you're hitting 10 times harder. But what if you're playing with somebody that doesn't warrant 10 times harder, and you've got to play at a particular level? Have you found yourself in a position where, because the energy of the stadium or the venue was so intense, that you actually overplayed your position?
Well, no, it's never happened to me, because I'm pretty cognizant of what the gig is. When I was doing the Wacken Festival in Germany, of course, the louder and the faster, the better. So, you're not going to go wrong there. Playing with Lou Gramm, you've got rock songs that are really kind of driving, and then you've got ballads, right? So you learn to, budget your energy, and you learn to where you hit hard and where you got to lay back. You can't play I Want to Know What Love Is when you're on 10 still, slamming away back there. So
right.
You just learn what the situation calls for, and you adjust appropriately. And it's like an athlete, again, to get the sports thing. And you don't want to blow your wad out in the beginning either, because then you got nothing left for the rest of the gig. So you can't go too crazy. You got to kind of check the adrenaline, so.
Okay. All right. 2 more questions. And these are things that I've always wanted to know. So let's say you're in the middle of, I don't know, maybe a drum solo, and you're getting into it, whatever. And one of your drumsticks flies out of your hand. And I know, they always have, but what happens if you only have one left? Have you ever seen that, or have you ever had that happen?
Well, I've seen guys lose a stick and having to try to keep going with one hand and pick it up back off the floor or something. To me, it's kind of funny because, luckily enough, I've always had enough of them. So I never had to go there, but trust me, I've been there a million times where either a stick goes flying out of my hands in the middle of a drum solo or in the middle of a song, or I've hit myself in the face, or I've hit myself I've bloodied my fingers and my face. I've knocked my glasses sideways. At the time, you just have to keep going. It's just something takes over. You're on autopilot. You keep going. You can't stop. You can't go, oh crap. And one funny story real quick is when we opened for Foghat, or they opened for us or whatever, it doesn't really matter. And Roger Earl was standing on the side of the stage, the drummer for Foghat, and he was watching me play. We were at the end, we were playing like Jukebox Hero or something, and I was doing a fill around the toms, and a stick flew out of my hand, and the next thing I know, it was up in the light truss. And I just looked at him, and we locked eyes, and he got this big, crap-eating grin on his face, because he's been there and done that. And we were just laughing, and I was like, well, that one's gone, and I picked up another one out of my stick bag and kept going, but that was hilarious. Just stuff like that. how could you not laugh? I mean, I've put blooper videos up on my YouTube and my Facebook where stuff like that happens all the time, where it'll bounce off this cymbal, that cymbal, and land in my hand or something.
Wow, what are the odds of that? I mean, here I'm in Vegas. You start calculating odds. You're like, that's almost impossible. All right, final question, then we're going to wrap this thing up. What about the unthinkable? If you're hitting so hard and you bust your drum, what happens if the stick goes through the drum? Now what do you do?
Well, you don't hit that drum anymore as best you can. I've gone through the kick drum head in the middle of a Lou Gramm gig, and I warned them ahead of time. I always want new heads on the drum so I can stretch them out and tune them. I don't want old beat up heads. So they gave me an old beat up head, and sure as heck, my beater went right through the drum head. So there, our guy was over here trying to duct tape it up, and it was just a mess for the rest of the show. But another time I blew the bottom head, believe it or not, out of my snare drum, which usually you break the top head. This time I blew out the bottom head.
Wow.
In front of 20,000 people opening up for Bad Company. It was like the first or second song in, and all of a sudden I'm hitting the drum and it sounds like a tom-tom. And luckily I have a spare, so I was able to swap it out, but it happens to everybody. You just go with it. It's like, it's funny later. Time plus drama equals comedy is my philosophy. So, later about it, you just laugh about it. What are you going to do?
That's good stuff. Yeah, it's like being in the middle of a guitar solo and you pop a string. It's like, quick, give me a new guitar. I mean, that's why they have, 10 guitars on stage. But these things happen. All right, listen, we're running on time a little bit. Tell everybody what's going on with you, how to follow you, et cetera, et cetera. Go ahead.
Cool. Well, you can go to my website, www.robmount.com. There's links to my social media on there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. I do a weekly video thing called Name That Tune, which is kind of fun. I've been doing it for years, where people try to guess whatever song it is that I play. I'll play a beat from a popular song. People dig that. As far as playing goes, I have a band up here in upstate New York called Forum. We play periodically here and there. With the COVID thing, it's been kind of tough, of course, like it is for everybody. But we've been doing gigs with that. And I'm also, I last played with Scrap Metal, which is an all-star band that the Nelson twins have put together with guys like Barry Goodrow from Boston and Eric Martin from Mr. Big and blah, blah, blah. And I played with them, and hopefully more gigs there once they get rolling. I've been in touch with them, and we'll see. It's just so tough because everybody's kind of postponing and canceling, and the future is a little uncertain with all that stuff. But you can go to my website. Anything that I do is on there, and links to all my stuff is right there. So thanks for asking.
All right, Rob, we're going to be looking for more updates from you at robmount.com, and of course we're going to have you come back here on the show because it's been a lot of fun, and we certainly like to talk music. And let's face it, I'm one of the worst musicians in the world. I'm the guy that destroys everyone's music, right? So nonetheless, we're going to bring you back. Maybe we'll have a special guest when you come back. And again, Thanks for joining us, and everybody else, thanks for joining us here on the Sports Circus. We'll see you next time right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this commercial right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.